Good evening and welcome to the Barth room here at the Crowell Library. Those of you who don't know me, my name is John Encontro. I'm your chief. Tonight's very important for me, and I think it is important for everybody else. There's issues that come up about the unhoused and those with mental health issues. And it is not something that is only in this city. Every city throughout our nation has the same problem. Many of us in our own homes are faced with family members, and in some cases, ourselves, that have some type of challenge at some time in their lives. Tonight, we want to educate ourselves, we want to inform each other, and we want to come to a better understanding about the unhoused in our society, and also folks, in some cases, also unhoused, but who are facing mental health challenges. I'm speaking slowly. We have Mandarin translation on Zoom. I'm very happy about that. Before I introduce our panel, I'm your moderator. You're not going to get to hear too much from me, which is good. But this started not just from calls from community members, not just from calls for service from our officers, observations, dealing with those folks that are unhoused or those with mental health issues or being some kind of crisis, but with conversations with community members. In particular, I want to point out Dr. Ghassan Rahmani. Doc and I are good friends. And I always need a sounding board. I always need someone who can kind of smack me and go, hey, you're not paying attention to this. Or I've got a great idea for us, for the community, for all of us. And several months ago, we got together and we spoke about this issue. So, Doc, thank you very much. I truly appreciate your help here. I want to recognize a few folks that are here. Our council member, Gretchen Shepherd-Roming, who's here. Former council member, Mayor Susan Jacobowski. Our fire chief, Mario Rueda. Community services, Kathy Johnson. Who else? I can name a bunch of fire guys in the back. Our city manager, Philippe Escondar. And with that, I want to introduce our panelists. And we asked for their help because one of the programs that we have in the city, because of the efforts of Susan, Gretchen, and other members of the council at the time, was to develop a way that professionals could come and deal with folks experiencing a mental health issue or crisis, and also to talk to some folks who are experiencing homelessness or being unhoused and find help for them, develop a rapport with these folks, with our folks, and really treat them like human beings. The department has been doing this for a long time. Many of you know I've been in this business for 44 years, almost 45. Part of my tenure with LAPD in 1981 is I walked a footbeat in Skid Row. Things have changed quite a bit. At that time, mental health services were plentiful. And we always found a bed at county hospital or other medical facilities. It's not like that. It's getting better, but it's not like that. So want to introduce our guests. I'll start with Caitlin Sims. She's from the San Gabriel Valley COG, and she works with Licata and also with our outreach and support teams. Right there. Next is Mary Kemp, also with San Gabriel Valley Care, right there. Will Gray, who's part of the outreach for the for housing, and we want to thank him. He's also part of San Gabriel Valley Care. We've been using LA CATA for a lot of our mental health for almost a year now, more than a year. And I truly support the idea that law enforcement should be pulled back and allow mental health professionals and others to take the lead. Been a little struggle here and there, but we've moved forward quite a bit. We've had many successes. And in particular, we had successes with a couple of teens here in the city. And I really applaud what they did. And they were able to not only help these teens, but also help their parents, help the family understand. So that is a great advantage that they have in the services. To continue, Onay Williams, he is from the LA County CEO's office, and he's here to talk specifically about housing and the unhoused and services that are available, what the county's doing, and what the future looks like. And also joining us is Erica Nam. Erica's from Senator Portantino's office. And when this program was getting off and starting and moving forward, it was some good funding from the senator's office that moved this program along. And we really do appreciate the things the senator has done, and Erica also from the staff. So with that, a couple of ground rules. If you are going to make a comment, we will be taking questions after the end of the event. Please use the microphone over there. We can pass it around, I think. That's important. We want everyone to hear it. We want the translator to be able to translate your questions or comments. Each and every one of you has something important to say. So that's critical. So please help me out on that. Slow down a little bit in your speech. Those of you who know me, I'm really slowing down. It's difficult. And we're recording this. It will be available. And we should have a good evening. Some of you may leave here not quite satisfied, but I'm hoping that you are going to walk out of here much more informed, much more educated, and much more willing to understand what all of us are facing in our communities together. So thank you. And if I can have Caitlin.
Right. All right. Good evening, everyone. And this is going to be a struggle for me because I also talk very fast. So it's going to take a lot. As Chief Encontro said, my name is Caitlin Sims. I am the manager of local programs at the San Gabriel Valley Council of Governments. And for those of you who are not familiar with our agency, we are a joint powers authority, which is basically just a fancy way of saying all of the cities in the San Gabriel Valley basically come together to try and figure out ways to solve regional problems. We do a lot of work in a variety of different areas. And as you may have guessed, over the last couple of years, the area of homelessness has been a key priority for our member cities. Our main thought process in doing this regional work is there are a lot of problems that really require thinking across jurisdictional boundaries. As Chief Encontro mentioned, homelessness is not just a problem in the city of San Marino, it's a problem nationwide, and that includes the cities around. So what we really try to do with the COG is we try to bring the cities together, we try to bring the resources together in order to most effectively serve persons experiencing homelessness throughout the region. And really what we try to do is we try to bring a continuum of resources to the city, whether that means, or to the city and to all cities. In some instances, this means focusing on housing, because obviously the solution for homelessness, in order for a person to be unhoused, they need a home. So in some instances, these are cities saying, we need support. We want to build an interim housing site. So we're able to provide that level of support. In some instances, these are cities saying, we want to build more affordable housing. So we're able to help provide those resources, whether it's just that support and helping cities figure out how to do that, or in some instances, all right, thank you, I will go slower. In some instances, that even means providing funding for said housing. But what I really want to focus on here tonight is the services for persons experiencing homelessness. Because what we really focus on, and we do this in our partnership with the Los Angeles Centers for Alcohol and Drug Abuse, Mary Kemp and Will Gray, as they were already introduced, to have teams that are out there in all of the communities in the San Gabriel Valley to build relationships with persons experiencing homelessness, because that really is what it takes. Every person who's experiencing homelessness has a story to how they got to that point. And actually, a recent study that was completed found that the overwhelming reason that persons are experiencing homelessness is because they simply do not have enough money to afford housing. And then there are obviously many other factors that can exacerbate those challenges. If you have a mental health challenges, which can even be exacerbated, increased by the fact that you're experiencing homelessness. Some may have substance use disorder challenges, but ultimately, every single individual has a story and a reason why they are experiencing homelessness. And the goal of our outreach programs and the great work that LA CADA does is to bring those teams out there into the community to provide proactive engagement and to build relationships with each individual in order to find that solution to them that will help them to be unhoused. So we have teams of individuals that are made up of case managers to really help build that rapport with individuals, with EMTs who can help with the health components, the health challenges that persons experiencing homelessness might need support with, housing navigators to help connect them to actual housing, and outreach specialists who really focus on building that rapport with each individual and finding the best solution for that individual. And as Chief Encontro said over the last year, and I also do want to shout out for Mayor Jakubowski, who really did play a key role in bringing this program, SGV Care, to the city, to really acknowledge not just the challenges for persons experiencing homelessness, but it's broader to also be able to support those experiencing mental health crises. In some instances, those individuals may also be unhoused, but in other instances, they may not be unhoused. So really the purpose of this program, the SGV Care program, as Chief Encontro mentioned, is to help allow mental health professionals who have the training to de-escalate situations, to work with these individuals and help ultimately connect them to the very few mental health resources that exist out there. So it's been a real honor to work with the police department, with the city as a whole, with LA CADA. And in the interest of time, I'll have Mary and Will be available for the questions portion of this. But we're really excited and have been happy to do this work in the city of San Marino. We're excited to expand the services toward even more for persons experiencing homelessness in San Marino. And really looking forward to this conversation tonight and helping to answer questions that you have. So with that, I will stop talking. Thank you.
Our next speaker will be Erica Namp from the Senator's office.
Hello, everybody. Sorry, I have my notes here. First, I would like to introduce myself. My name is Eric Nam, and I'm from Senator Portantino's office. I wanted to talk a little bit more about our office and our district office and what type of and which areas we represent. So Senator Portantino represents California's 25th district, and it stretches all across the 210 freeway from Sunland to Hunga all the way to Upland. So it's kind of like a weird shape. I happen to represent San Marino, South Pasadena, as well as all of the Asian Pacific Islander related issues within this district area. So I'm in LA a lot as well. I wanted to thank San Marino Police Department as well as San Marino for inviting me to share more information about Senator Portantino's initiatives, specifically on mental health. So, the senator has been a strong champion of advocating for mental health policies, and he's been dedicated to improve mental health outcomes during his time in public office. Recently, it was just last month, he was awarded Legislator of the Year by California Association of School Counselors for being a champion on mental health policies and also being instrumental in improving educational programs and systems for the children of California. I wanted to also kind of introduce some of the bills that the senator has introduced this year. So this year, the senator introduced a bill, SB 509. This bill would require the California Department of Education to ensure that 100% of classified and 40% certificated employees on school campuses complete an evidence-based behavioral health training program. Unfortunately, the governor did not sign this and the law was vetoed. But there was another bill which is in the committee process, which is the SB 551 pertaining to mental health boards. This will add a requirement that mental health boards with 9 or more members have 2 members that fall into the actual age category of a child or transition age youth, and have 2 members that are public school employees. Last year, the senator also introduced several bills pertaining to mental health. So I wanted to share about 1207, which the senator authored, which improves maternal mental health support. SB 1002, which addresses California's mental health provider shortage. And thankfully, both of the bills were signed by Governor Newsom last year. And I know Caitlin and Chief and Contra also mentioned about the SGV Care, and I wanted to share a little bit more about that as well. So Senator Portantino provided funding for SGV Care, the mobile mental health and homelessness crisis response effort. Sorry, I'm talking too fast. Last year, the senator joined elected officials from San Gabriel Valley, COG, Arcadia, the city of Montebello, the city of San Marino, and also South Pasadena to announce the launch of the SGV Care program. And he was able to secure $850,000 in the new funding from the 2022 to 2023 state budget for this particular mobile crisis response pilot program. So these resources will help us expand the SGV Care to other cities within the San Gabriel Valley. And we're really hoping that it's going to connect vulnerable residents to definitive care for acute medical, mental health, and social needs through trauma-informed engagement. And I also wanted to share a little bit more about the bills that the senator passed during his time in public service. So previously, the senator authored SB 972, which required schools to print the suicide hotline on student identification cards, so the student ID cards. He also dedicated 3 years to pass SB 328, which was a policy to push back the start times for middle school and high schoolers, scientific data and research so that later school start times lead to improved mental health for kids with reductions in instances of anxiety, depression, as well as suicidal intentions. More importantly, the senator also authored SB 224, which requires local educational agencies, which currently offer 1 or more courses in health education to middle or high school students, to include a mental health content in those courses. I also wanted to touch base on some of the initiatives that the state of California is doing in terms of homelessness and housing. So they were able to establish the Behavioral Health Infrastructure Bond of 2024, which would ideally authorize $6.38 billion in bond funds upon voter approval dedicated to various housing programs, including targeted funding for veterans with behavioral health and health needs and 10,000 behavioral health beds. The state also revised the Mental Health Services Act to include substance use disorders. A portion of the funds go to the counties for housing people with behavioral health disorders and enhancing the local planning process of that. The state also allocated $250 million of the multifamily housing program, the flagship affordable housing development program, as well as allocating another $520 million to fund the California Dream for All shared equity down payment assistance program for first-time homebuyers. So I do have more of the initiatives that the state of California is doing, and I'd be happy to leave my business card with you guys. And if you guys have any questions, I'd be happy to answer that as well. So thank you.
Our next speaker will be Will Gray. Okay. Yeah, come on up. I'm the chief. I can choose.
Okay, so I'm Will Gray, and I'm from LA County or the Los Angeles Center for Drug and Alcohol Abuse. I am overseeing our outreach teams. San Marino will soon be having an outreach team coming. And the idea of the program that I work with is called the supplemental program. So it's to work with to supplement existing services that already may exist in the city, but also to maybe reconnect an individual who might have been disconnected from somebody they might already have been working with. Our ultimate goal of the program is housing. Of course, we also want to address other issues such as mental health and substance use disorder, which may also be part of the story. But the number one part of the team is to build that rapport, find out who this person is, what is their story, what are their needs, what are they willing to participate in, and then based upon that, coming up with a plan to figure out how we can connect that person to the services or housing that they need. That's pretty much about it for as far as the program, but it is coming soon. Thanks.
And finally, I want to introduce One Williams, LA County.
All right. Just having some tech issues before, but hopefully it's worked out. So good evening, everyone. Thank you for welcoming me here. My name is One Williams with Los Angeles County. I am with the Chief Executive Office and the Homeless Initiative, which is the coordinating body for the county to prevent and address homelessness here within our 88 cities and our unincorporated areas. So what I do, I typically work with our local jurisdictions, providing coordination and support so that we can better layer and coordinate services. So I work in partnership with Caitlin from the San Gabriel Valley COG, all of the other 6 councils of government as well throughout the county, and provide them what's called local solutions funding. So in addition to what the county provides funding for through service providers, different departments who touch on homelessness, we also provide funding to local jurisdictions so that they can better coordinate and layer services for local solutions. So San Marino, I was asked to come present to San Marino, and I thought, why? Why San Marino? I looked at the homeless population for the past few years, and 0, 1, 0, you know. And to me, you know, I was delighted to come because it opens up a conversation. And I think that's what we're all here, is just to really get an understanding what is going on in the city, throughout the city. I mean, Huntington Drive is a main vein moving through the San Gabriel Valley as well as through LA. And so I'm sure as many of you pass through, you see a lot of the homeless issues that we're having here, or people experiencing homelessness. I actually grew up in the neighboring city in Alhambra. Went to Alhambra High, Pasadena City College, and San Diego State before I moved on and stuff like that. So I am a local, and I have seen just myself, again, some of the exponential growth that we're experiencing. So what do we see today? Where are we at today? There was a 9% rise in homelessness from last year up to about 75,000, a little over 75,000 people experiencing homelessness within the county. And I'll provide kind of a macro view of what we're facing here. A little over 75,000 people, 9% rise. The city of LA itself had a 10% rise to over 46,000 people just within the city of Los Angeles. Most of the service planning areas, they're divided a little bit differently than the Council of Government Boundaries. Had some significant increases, and there was one with a small decrease. But this is not just an LA County phenomenon that we're seeing. We're seeing this all across the major metropolitan cities, Chicago, Portland, New York. We're seeing this a lot where there's a lot of economic development, economic growth, right? So on both coasts, here in Los Angeles, great economic industry here, in New York, great economic industry. And so what we're seeing are the impacts of basically a lot of house burden, rent burden folks. The housing, I'm sure you guys know, I'm not sure if you guys are still out there buying houses, but I'm sure some people may be. Right now, it's just really ridiculous with the affordability and folks to actually just stay in their rental market, their rental unit. So there's a lot of impacts that we're actually seeing out there. Homeless itself, again, has a lot of complexities. There's a lot of structural impacts that we're seeing from prior decades of policies, right? Some housing policies, obviously, that I just mentioned, mental health policies that the chief touched about. Some of our mental health programs over the decades have been really defunded, and we're now seeing a lot of the impacts and really trying to build infrastructure and capacity to get those back. We are also seeing a lot of individual issues that come up. So not only just structural issues, institutional issues, but individual issues as well related to homelessness. And so what is the county doing to address all of this? Well, on January 10th of 2023, the County Board of Supervisors declared a state of emergency, and they identified 3 missions that they want to tackle as part of this emergency. One is encampment resolutions in partnership with our local jurisdictions. And what that is we have a program very similar to what the city of Los Angeles is doing with Inside Safe, but we're partnering with our unincorporated areas as well as our other 88 or 87 jurisdictions outside of the city of Los Angeles to really focus on some of the visible homelessness that you do see, so that we can actually provide permanent pathways to housing and services for folks. Okay, so very targeted encampment resolutions. These aren't cleanups, these aren't sweeps. We're not moving folks from one street to the next. We're actually providing interim housing, permanent housing, and services so that we can get somebody on a pathway to permanent housing and exit their homelessness. We are also, mission number 2 is increasing our housing supply. And so we're working with our Department of Public Works, who does a lot of the permitting within the unincorporated areas, hopefully gonna model that for a lot of our cities so that they can think about and take action on some of their ordinances to have some more inclusive policies and inclusive ordinances. Right now in California, over 70% of our properties are still single family homes. And so I know the governor, I believe it was not this past year, but last year, had passed some policies, SB 9, I think SB 10, to allow more accessible dwelling units. I have 3 children myself, and I'm extremely concerned about keeping our family together as they grow older and where that can be because of the affordability and the jobs that are out there, the way that jobs are paying these particular days. So allowing folks to actually build accessible dwelling units on their property is just an avenue to create more housing stock within our communities. The third mission that we have is mental health and substance use disorders. services. As our state representative said, there's a lot more funding going into mental health services these days. Right now, I want to be very honest and candid with you. There's all this influx of funding, but there's also this infrastructure and capacity that needs to be built. While there's this influx in mental health funding, we're also at the same time hitting a crisis between the mental health workers, having different options based on COVID and telework. And why would somebody maybe want to provide street services to people experiencing homelessness when they can stay home and do telemedicine, right? And so there are some challenges we are facing with building our infrastructure, our capacity, because one would think, well, you just got all this funding, why isn't it in 3 weeks the whole system changed? So again, just want to articulate some of those challenges. I deal with the city, again, the 88 cities, and I hear some of their infrastructure and capacity building as well, challenges. The COG itself, again, has to went through a growth spurt. That's just a reality to be able to stand up programs and services. So we are making headway. So I don't say that as, nothing is happening, but we are building that capacity. The fourth mission that was just added was eviction prevention. And so what we realize is this, the county on any single day houses close to about 227 people, okay, any given day. But we have, and I'm sorry, I think it's 225, but we have an inflow of close to about 230. So that's a delta with the deficit. So we got to stop the inflow of folks falling into homelessness, so that way the rehousing system can actually work and quickly get them out to housing. Okay. So the Board of Supervisors, again, added a fourth mission for eviction prevention, which will really focus on tenant protections, hopefully housing affordability. So again, we can kind of turn that faucet off for the inflow. I think that is where I will pause for now. So again, I just really appreciate you all coming out and just having an open ear and an open mind. Thank you.
Thank you very much to our speakers. I want to speak briefly on what we do. And many people may wonder, well, why aren't the police taking these folks away? Well, there's legislation, there's laws, 2 court cases in particular dealing with homelessness, Grants Pass in Oregon, and also a case in Boise, Idaho. These cases restrict what we can do legally. We have to operate within the law. The days of throwing someone in the back of a police car, driving them a distance away, pushing them out of the car and coming back to your city are long gone. Problem is, that's called kidnapping. And we don't do that. The option we have are working with the folks here and working with the system right now to find housing, to find mental health care. As you just heard, there's a challenge. There's not enough mental health professionals. There's not enough beds. There will be times when my officers are in the field and when the fire department that also transports those having a mental health crisis have to wait until there's a bed available or go someplace else to find a bed that's available. During COVID, we had one facility that our officers could take someone to, and that was in East Los Angeles. We didn't have options when we followed the rules because sometimes we went to Huntington, but we couldn't go to Huntington Hospital. We couldn't go to San Gabriel Hospital. We had to go to the one location. That made it more difficult for us. When we go to the scene, we make an assessment. Is the person committing a crime? No. If it's in public, a person has a right to rest. They have the right to sit in a public place. If it's a private property, we need the resident, the business owner, to make a citizen's arrest for trespass. When we don't get that, we will ask the person who is the cause of the call, could you please leave? They say no, we're kind of stuck. So needing your cooperation is critical. You need to be involved when it's on a private property, a business or a residence. We will also evaluate for their medical status. Sometimes folks need medical care. We call our fire department. They're out of service. They're transporting for medical care. Sometimes there's a mental health issue. We make an evaluation under 5150 of the Welfare and Institutions Code. There's 3 things that have to occur. Someone has to be gravely disabled. They can't care for themselves. Well, 4. They can't care for their property. And I just went blank. Danger to themselves and danger to others. Thank you very much. If that criteria is not there, we can't do anything. There's nothing legally that we can do. We try and give them the best care. We give them the options. Nearly all of my officers are trained in dealing with these situations, not only through the regular program or training, but also through a program that LA County was supporting, which is the HOST program, where we had officers from throughout the San Gabriel Valley working together and helping folks experiencing homelessness, maybe mental health issues. Special training, special phone numbers to call for people, the ability to transport. We still are involved in that program the best we can. But sometimes we just can't do anything. Some of the cities in this area, Los Angeles, for one, and a couple others in California have filed lawsuits concerning these rules and these laws. Litigation is expensive. Litigation will result in protests, demands from groups, and can detract from what we're trying to get. And that's through the cooperation that we have with the individuals. Many of my officers know the folks that you see by name. They know them well. We know of one person who was here for a while. With the assistance of a couple groups, we're able to get him help. And he hasn't been back. But that's not always the success. And I understand that you are in fear, that you believe they are going to commit a crime. We talk to them, we look at them, we give them a care package when we can. And I have to thank the other faith-based community groups that we have here in town that have been very helpful in giving us these items to give to the folks. But we have to make that decision. We have to risk or evaluate the risks and the other issues associated with dealing with the homeless and mentally ill. Mentally ill, we're pretty good at getting them help. If not, we bring our folks out from Ellicott, San Gabriel Valley Care, and they help us out quite a bit. They may not be successful. They may not get a result that's going to come up and say a few words, and then we'll get right into the questions. I know those questions are important.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Chief. My name is Mary Kemp, and I am the program manager for SGV Care, which provides the mobile crisis. And we have a response team that is responding to your dispatch when the residents of San Marino need mental health care, support, and any type of behavioral health emergency. So San Marino is part of a cohort, and your city is participating in SGV Care along with South Pasadena and Arcadia. So the team consists of a clinician, an SUD counselor, and an EMT. It's ironic that as I left my office this evening to be here with you, our team got a call from San Marino Dispatch and was called right here to the school. And a youth here needed assistance and was in an aggravated argument with another youth, and de-escalation was needed, but clearly a mental health issue. And that would be an ideal example of when our team would respond in terms of mental health emergency. And our team is working for your city 4 days a week. I have a leave behind a card so that you have a better understanding of, just how can we help when there's a mental health or behavioral emergency for your residents. Another example that I want to share with you, just at the end of last week, there was a resident that called our team, and the mother was struggling with her son not wanting to take medication. And so this mother was calling 911, a repeat caller, and we need help with our son. And my team spent over an hour with this individual and was able to just calm the situation down and didn't leave that resident until this young man was compliant and took the medication. That's just a couple examples. But again, mental health and behavioral health emergencies. And we partner, collaborate, coordinate everything with law enforcement. And we're so grateful for that. And the COG, of course. So I'll make sure that you have, anybody would like yeah, of course. I'll just make sure everybody. So I'm available for Q&A, and thank you for having us.
Thank you, Mary. And now for questions.
Thank you, Chief, and thank you all for joining today. My question actually, I think, has been touched upon both by Mary and by you, which is in the last year, 988 launched, which many people don't realize is meant to be an alternative to 911. So if you witness on the street or are having yourself or a loved one a mental health crisis, you can call 988 instead of 911. And I was wondering, how is that going for you in terms of law enforcement? How do you triage if people are still calling 911 when they perhaps should be calling 988? How do you work together to make sure the best and fastest things happen to address people who are experiencing mental health and often are unhoused? And we witness this. And the same example you gave before, you issue a ticket. Is there a way to bring in your colleagues from 988 in those situations if there's a mental health issue?
Great question. Could you answer the 988 part for us?
Just give a little bit, yeah. So let me give a little bit I'll get to your question and kind of some history real quick. So law enforcement has been around for centuries. 911 has been around for over 50 years. And again, it was for emergency services. 988 is really a federal initiative. LA County, the Department of Mental Health just became responsible for it last December. I work very close with that team on trying to find out how they are standing that program up. And again, there's kind of some infrastructure capacity program design that they're actually going through right now. There are a couple other cities like West Hollywood, who does have a mobile crisis team as well, that they're actually working with the Department of Mental Health to really develop some of that model between clinical services, community behavioral health services, and the difference between that and then law enforcement responsibilities. So the goal is that it does become in everybody's mind just ingrained like 911 is that will take a little bit of time. It will take a little bit of campaigning and messaging. And then obviously, again, they're just going through that capacity building right now. And so it isn't fully functional all across the county. It's great to see actually that there's a great example here of a mobile crisis team that is working, because again, this will be part of the collaboration that we build and see success between what they're doing, the Department of Mental Health, and essentially how can that get patched into the 988 system.
I think part of your question also is, what do we do? Our dispatchers are trained in triaging the calls. When we know that San Gabriel Valley Care is available, we call them, give them the information, and their response is pretty darn quick. Usually less than 5 minutes or about that. And we may respond with them to ensure that everyone is safe. Once they are able to establish that relationship, my officers are now available to handle different types of calls. I'm not going to say more serious calls, because these calls are extremely serious, but other calls of more of a law enforcement nature. We're still working on criteria and on how we're going to determine who's going to handle what type of call. How far do we want to expand their services? This city has an expectation of response. Our response is about 2.5 minutes within the city. You're all used to that. I'm used to that. And I want to make sure that we're providing you that service. But when we have a team of experts who can de-escalate, as our officers can, but they can de-escalate and begin care, that's very important in these situations. Who had the other question? There.
Turn around. So good evening. My name is Minerva Clemens. I'm trying to get out of here because I don't like talking from my seat. I so much appreciate, we're resident, my husband and I, of San Marino for the last 30 years. And I can really identify, before we were living in Alhambra, our children went to Alhambra High. They probably know you. And I've been an interpreter for the state of California and for the courts, and I just retired after 38 years. So I can appreciate that. I really appreciate all of the work. And in the last 30 years, we have seen so many changes in the city, and we really love what's happening. The reason, and I'll tell you my question in just a second, but I just wanted you to know how I can identify. I wasn't even supposed to be here, but he made me come. Says you gotta be there. So I'm glad I came. Thank you. So here's the thing. I was an interpreter. Our son was a LAPD. Thank God he's already out and about, lives in Europe. Our daughter has just finished her master's in rehab, vocational rehab. So she works in this new program that the county of the courthouse has, I think in all of the county courthouses, where they determine when someone is charged with a crime, if this person you can rehabilitate or you have to put him in jail. And I'm sure you're all familiar with that. So we love all of the things that are happening. My question is, oh, my husband was an RN. He did a lot of surgeries and a lot of things. So we really love what's happening because we are people that love the helping fields. My question is the following. Who do I talk to? I have come up with a model for homelessness that I don't know why they haven't thought of it. I tried presenting it to Andy Bales. You remember who he just retired, Andy Bales. And he didn't quite get it, or he took me around, he wanted me to donate some more money to his. And then I also tried to present it once or twice, but I need to go to the right person or people. And because I think it's something that might be of a lot of help. So if you let me know tonight, we'll talk and we'll connect. And I'm glad that we're here, that we need to encourage all of these people as residents and have them understand that we appreciate what they're doing for our community. Thank you so much.
Jerry, I'll get right to you, but we have a couple questions online.
Okay, so our first question is, the San Gabriel Valley COG correctly recognizes that homelessness is a multifaceted challenge and has promoted a regional approach to tackling the issue. In 2018 and again in 2021, San Marino was one of a small handful of SGV COG's member cities that declined to develop a city homeless plan. How can we as a city expect to meaningfully contribute to the COG's regional efforts if we are not willing to at least conduct the analysis required to develop an individual city homeless plan? I apologize, 2021 is a bit before my time, so I do not have an answer for that either.
Well, to the writer of the question, it's a great question. It's something that we will obviously discuss with San Gabriel Valley COG, with the city manager and the other city departments. All we can do is follow up. I think it's a good question. We'll find out what we can do. And we're in the process of making sure that we're working more often and better with the COG, with San Gabriel Valley Cares.
And the second question, I have out of 3 that I have so far. Just last month, Governor Newsom signed Senate Bill 43, which significantly updates California's conservatorship laws and expands the criteria for conservatorship. How does the city anticipate this will affect our local efforts?
Another great question. You know, one of the problems is when a law is signed, it still takes a little while for the law to start. This new law the governor signed gives us a lot of possibilities and hopefully a lot of action in the future. And once we understand how it's going to be employed and how we're going to be able to use it, then we'll be able to follow through. And I'm sure it's going to be very helpful in the future. Anyone have any comments? Good political answer. Thanks. Let's do the one last.
Sure. So this question was pertaining to the homeless members of our community that we might have on public land. What specifically are you asking of residents that they can do about those folks?
Please give us a call. Please allow us to go out, find out if there's any laws being broken, find out, first of all, is the person in need of medical care or a mental health care? We have our resources available to us. We will use those resources, whether it's the San Gabriel Valley Care, our fire department, or police department, and we'll respond appropriately. But please give us a call. We don't mind those calls at all.
That was all I have. If anybody else on Zoom wants to submit a question, please use Q&A.
Okay, next.
Thanks, Chief. First off, I really appreciate the fact that you folks have taken your time to be here, and you're a wealth of knowledge and something we really need. Thank you very much. I think I would like to direct my question to Mr. Williams because you're the county, right? And the county is the head of the. How much funding have we received from federal and state, to your knowledge, in the last couple of years for the unhoused and mentally?
It's a great question. Had some tech issues, so I don't have the exact numbers with me right now, but I'll tell you this: last year, between Measure H and some other revenue sources between the state and federal government, it was a little over $609 million.
And
that go ahead.
Go ahead. No,
go ahead, go ahead.
okay. And that is to handle 75,000 people. And that's just the county. That's not what Los Angeles or the San Gabriel Valley people have received. That's 630 was federally to the county or state.
That is through the county. The funding that the San Gabriel COG gets a portion of that funding.
I see. Okay. Does the county have an oversight committee to be responsible for accounting for where that money went?
Yes, absolutely. They have monthly meetings every month. Every monthly meetings. Yeah.
Are those meetings open?
They are. So they used to be virtually. Now they're in person. And I believe one of the closest access points when they do have the meeting is here in Duarte. And then they rotate. So like, I think they had one in El Segundo and then Duarte when they had it. And anybody's free to just go and participate in those. And there's also an annual audit that they do of all of the funding and expenditures.
You mentioned that we are housing in Los Angeles or Los Angeles County. I wasn't sure which. 227 a night or 225 a night?
Correct. We've permanently housed over, I believe, 90,000 people since the passage of Measure H. And we've temporarily housed in interim housing over 125,000 people.
So we have 90 that we're housing permanently, and we still have 75 on the street, 75,000 on the streets.
75,000 people experiencing homelessness. There's about 75% that are unsheltered of that number.
Well, it just kind of seems to me that it's like feeding a pigeon. If you feed one today, next week you've got 10. I mean, are we taking too good care of these people?
I would not say that. We're definitely not taking care of them. The issue is, again, it's really the inflow. And so if you look at where rents are today, you look at where wages are today, folks are extremely rent burdened. The average 2-bedroom apartment is close to $3,000, okay? We raise the minimum wage, and then the economy from the top says everything else needs to raise. And so while you think you're winning, you're actually really still in the same bucket or worse off. You look at the cost of housing right now. You look at the interest rates of housing right now. I am fearful for the next generation who are in their 40s and younger to just buy a house, right? Not even in San Marino, just in Alhambra, San Gabriel, some of the surrounding cities, right? My parents bought their house in Alhambra, just as an example, just off of being clerical positions. You now have to be a professional with a very high paying job, making a couple $100,000 to be able to afford a house just in a city like Alhambra. So times have changed. It's not that we're actually doing more and people are coming more. There's a study that was out, the Bancroft study from UC San Francisco, that showed over the past, folks that became homelessness, over 90% of them, their last housing was in California. So it's not like a lot of people think, and that's a myth, folks are coming out and putting on the map Westlake Village from Idaho, like that's the place I want to go. Maybe a little bit with the beach cities, but definitely within the inland valleys, folks aren't putting San Gabriel on the map to come out here.
Just recently, there was a newspaper article about the city of Los Angeles taking over a motel and multiple unit motel. And they were spending over 500,000 per room to rehab it to house the homeless. I can build you an ADU for under that.
That would be fantastic if there are some inclusionary policies.
I mean, that's why
That-
I asked about the
Yeah.
oversight
Yeah.
committee. Is anybody following the money?
No, definitely. And again, I can't speak for the city of LA, but I mean, I think what you just presented is a definite solution to have more inclusionary policies to allow folks with single family homes and big properties to be able to build ADUs. And that way, some of that funding for permanent housing could be directed to those resources.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I have a little bit of a related question. You identified the number one issue as housing affordability. And in San Marino with the median home price, what is it now? $2.8 million. I was at a meeting with some school board folks last week. Our vacancy rate in San Marino is around 12%. So we have all this housing that's not being used. What can we do as citizens and voters? So recently, there was a measure on the ballot to pass a vacancy tax that I thought would pass easily. It's a problem that is hurting us in San Marino. It hurts the schools that we don't have families living in those homes. It's making the housing affordability crisis worse, that those homes are sitting empty. So what can I do as a citizen and a voter to tackle this problem of vacancies in our city?
That's not a police question. I don't know if anyone has an answer or wants to respond. It's not my area of expertise. Sure.
Sorry, I am not an expert either on this. But specific to the ballot measure, we did put it on the ballot and we are working to deal with that problem because it's a public safety problem. It influences our school, it impacts homelessness, affordability. Having vacant residents here is a huge problem for our city and for surrounding cities. I mean, some foreign cities don't even allow people from other jurisdictions or countries to buy homes there. So we have seen evidence in other places, but right here we were trying to just deal with it firsthand, and we need to get another ballot measure probably on in the next cycle or two to, again, we need, since it was a tax that we would assess, a progressive tax, if a house remains empty and there were a lot of 13, I believe, exceptions. If it was in a real estate transaction, a trust, things that happen to the homeowners, et cetera, military service, et cetera. So we made a lot of exceptions. We tried to get information out there, but it wasn't a very busy election year. We got, I believe, either 57 or 59%. And because it's a property tax, we needed 2/3 of the voters, so 66%. So I'm hoping as people become more educated and realize how this affects them in their schools, their homes, so many different ways, that we could tackle it again and bring it back to our residents here. And that would end up leading to future support. But it is something that we will consider doing, and hopefully that will benefit our community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Much better than I could have done.
Let's see, I initially wanted to just respond real quickly, and I did. I also had a question. The only thing that I can suggest an answer to some of what you asked is that when we can communicate with those people who own the properties that are vacant, there have been a couple things that have come up that I don't know if everybody is aware of necessarily. Some people.
Sir, if you could talk closer into the mic,
Some
Mr.
people,
Bahar.
some people are using them as a escape sanctuary from the countries that they live in. Some of these countries that these people are living in are very tragic for them, and so they have bought their sanctuary if they need to. They don't have to be here. They can come and go back and forth business-wise or whatnot, but that's why some of the properties are here. And some of them may be vacant simply because the people are waiting to see what's going to happen where they're at. Now, that's a discussion that would be out of here, out of this discussion. But we don't hear that. We hear the debate about the tax, which is fine. We hear the debate about the safety, which is fine. But I don't really hear the answer from the people who own the properties. I don't know that there's a forum for them to explain why they're doing this, other than the fact it's an investment as well for those who have the investment. So that was just an observation I picked up a little while back and that I would share. But my question though was related to the last Zoom call. And that is when we see people using the corridor of Huntington, or maybe Fair Oaks and a couple of the north and souths as well, if they're moving or if they look like they're resting, how would we as citizens of the city determine that that's a 988 call or a 911 call? Unless they're breaking into something, if they're just sitting on the bus bench or just happen to be sitting at Lacey Park, would you want 100 calls a day on people like that? Or is there another way we can look at what is it that we need to assess before we ask for your assessment?
Thank you. For us, if you see someone in distress, if you see something out of the ordinary, in training for us, if the hair on the back of your head stands up, then I heard the snickers. Then there's probably something to that. Give us a call. Let us find out. But if someone is walking down the sidewalk and they don't seem to be in distress, they don't seem to be in need, wouldn't necessarily call. But I will tell you, when that does happen here in town, we get multiple calls. Again, that's all right. With the one gentleman I talked about earlier, he was our #1 source of calls for service for several months. We went out every time. We wanted to make sure. In fact, he would call on anyone he thought was homeless near him. So maybe it's, anyway. So we will still respond. That's what we do. That's what you pay us to do. And that's what the expectations are for public safety. So, but if there doesn't appear to be any distress, they're walking along and everything seems fine, I think it's okay. One last question and we'll find out if there's any more questions on Zoom. Doc.
First of all, my name is Dr. Romani. I'm retired physician in the San Gabriel area. Thank you very much for the great job you guys are doing. But the fundamental reason behind all of this goes back to many years ago when the mental health institutions were closed. No funding. It's a very rich country. I don't know anybody who's richer, any other country who's richer than ours. But it closed. So what do you have? You have homeless people. And those homeless or unhoused people are some mentally ill. So you take them to a clinic, short visit out in the street. They hear voices. They go out and shoot 18 people in Maine. This has to stop. And the only way to stop is force the medical foundation, the medical institution to take action to reinstate housing, mental health housing for mental institutions for those patients who are mentally ill or pose danger to their community and to themselves. That's important. We have to campaign for this. We have to push and push until it happens to correct this. All we're doing is doing the best we can, but the fundamental problem is that, in my view. It's unexcusable in a country that has all the resources, and I don't know what we're doing. Thank you very much.
I thank you. This might be more of a question for our city managers and leaders. I know recently there's been several maybe policy changes or rules changes to ensure that, for example, that our city staff and like library staff are safe, because we often have that situation where we have individuals who come in who are not they're mentally ill, and they can put our the patrons, our library attenders, the staff at risk. And I was wondering, because as we're driving through the city, I see individuals living in our very charming bus stops that we have. One is by our across from Starbucks, where we have the Christmas tree house, and the other one is by the high school. And they've been there for, I know, many, many years. And we're all quite fond of looking at them. But I think on the other side of this, it's become an attraction. People move in, they stay there for, I've seen one individual there for now many, many times. And I'm wondering, and I know this is not something we all like to see, but if it's time to dismantle those bus stops. And one because it's it sort of brings in a situation that our police officers have to deal with, our safety people have to deal with. It's just it creates more of a problem, and maybe it's just time to move on from that. And I'm sorry to say that, but we are living in different times now, and I like to propose that.
Hi, my name is Stephanie, and I recently spoke at City Council requesting the removal of both those locations. I've put 5 kids through the school district. I have 2 at the high school. I'm so grateful to our police department because I am someone that calls rather frequently. I'm grateful that there's a panel and hundreds of people that are concerned with the homeless and the mental ill. I'm concerned with my children. I'm concerned that we have 4 schools on Huntington Drive. We have tutoring sites. I'm sorry, 5 schools? 6 schools, a library, tutoring sites. We have nursery schools. We have a library. We're a small community, and our children should be our first and most important priority. So if I may ask Chief Encontro, if I go to the city requesting that these sites be removed, where else do I go? Is it signing a petition? Is it, where do we go with this? If you may help me. Somebody can help me. Thank you.
I guess I can earn my salary tonight. So my name is Felipe Escandar. I'm the new city manager. And I appreciate both of your comments about both of those shelters. The first thing I wanted to mention, the one that you're mentioning at the high school, belongs to the high school. It sits on high school and school district property. That's one thing that we have been speaking about just this morning. Councilmember Shepherd Rami and I were speaking about that property. Many folks don't know that that particular location, our resources, our hands are tied in what we can do because, again, it's private property, it's school district property. If they do not want us to engage with the individuals that are there, their policy may be different from our policies. Our officers can't do anything. The bus stop, tangentially calling it a bus stop, the shelter across the street, that house, it's been in our town for, I believe, 71 years. Ms. Johnson was telling me just today. I respectfully, if we do tear it down, I'm not sure that that solves the problem for that specific individual. That individual's there because there is nowhere else for that individual to go. And so, as Dr. Ramani mentioned, we're dealing with this crisis from several different components. This is a housing issue. As One mentioned, this is a mental health issue, as Caitlin mentioned. So these individuals, I believe it was a week ago we were out there. We went out to look and start planning for the holiday installation. And the individual, as soon as we walked over, he said, "Thank you, I'm leaving," and walked away. I see him myself when I drive into work. But that individual, to the extent that our officers, our firefighters, our clinicians, our mental health providers offer them services and they decline, they can walk away and come back. Being homeless, as the chief said, is not necessarily a crime in and of itself. And rest assured that our police department's engaging that individual. They are communicating with him. They know, as he mentioned, him on a first name basis. They know the other individuals on a first name basis. And if there is a threat, if there is any assessment, as he mentioned, that there is a risk to any of our children, to any of our lives, our officers' first priority and their first top of mind is your safety, your children's safety. And they're communicating with these individuals to the best that laws allow them. And I will say the dynamic in the world that all of us work in, half of the jobs that these individuals up here hold did not exist 10, 15, 20 years ago. Our librarians did not expect to be mental health providers. Our firefighters and our police officers did not get into these lines of work to be mental health providers or to be housing service providers. But they are now having to do these things. And so we are adapting as best we can in the world that we can in San Marino. The question that was asked earlier about developing a plan, a homeless outreach plan for San Marino. The question that we would answer it with a question is, with a population, a homeless population of 0 or 1 in San Marino, are your tax dollars best served spending tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars developing a plan, or are they better served sending our officers, our firefighters, our library staff to training and doing different things where we know we can make incremental approaches at these different things, or spending them to help fund these types of resources? But I appreciate both of your comments about those shelters. What I would posit to you is that if they're not being sheltered at that location at that day, are we pushing them further and deeper into our communities? That is a question that we have to answer. So I appreciate that, and we're happy to have that conversation. Councilmember Shepherd-Rami heard both of your requests. The council members heard the request at the last council meeting, and it's something that we can certainly take up. So a long-winded answer to say, this is one of those things that we have to really put our arms around as a community. I know that there are individuals that provide food, clothing, different things to both of those individuals. I don't think necessarily gets at what you're getting at, but that is something that happens here in San Marino. We have residents that are providing services to these individuals. So we have both sides of this conversation, that folks are showing up at our office, at his station, at their station, and having these conversations on how can they help those individuals. So we're trying to balance that as public service providers. So I think we're at the end of our time, and I know that we have a couple more questions, but I think we can wrap it up here, Chief, or before we, it's up to you.
We'll have one last question. Are there any questions remaining?
I do not. This is officially the last call for anyone on Zoom.
Hi, I don't have a speech to make, but I got a couple of questions, and it kind of comes from a bunch of the stuff that was said. I just wanted to kind of touch on what you said, and it's not a criticism of what you said, but I had heard before about people talking about removing the bus shelter to try to solve this problem. And I think to myself, that's insane, and not a criticism. We can't have a desirable community without destroying the structures in it that someone might abuse. I mean, that's our only option, to destroy these things and take it away. I mean, I drive by that bus shelter and I see people standing in the sun outside the bus shelter waiting for the bus because somebody has moved into it. And I don't understand why we as a town tolerate that. I mean, the city has decided that they don't want people parking their cars on the street at night because of crime issues and stuff like that. The city, but if I forget my car, as I sometimes do on the street, I usually get up and find a ticket there. And There's no negotiation about it. I got a ticket, and if I don't pay it, some bad stuff's going to happen. I guess one of my questions that I thought I didn't quite understand, I get it that somebody has a right to rest. I've rested on benches myself. But at what point does resting become habitating? Is it after 2 hours or 6 hours or 36 hours or 7 days or 48 days? Is there an actual definition of that? And regarding the law, is it legal to move into a public structure and just stay there? And if it's not, why aren't we doing something about that? Or at the very least, making it a not welcoming situation so somebody might move on. And the one other thing I just wanted to kind of touch on, we have a homeless population of 0 or 1, depending on, the time of year. It's certainly different than LA, where they have 25 or 50,000 people, which presents a very different problem. If the restriction is we can't move them out unless we have a shelter, why don't we just if it's only one, we can contract for 2 shelter beds. And so they're always available. And if somebody's there and needs shelter, give them a ride to it. And if they don't want the shelter, at that point, don't the laws against public camping start to come into effect? So I'm hoping maybe you can explain that.
Great question. I'll start off with the camping. The court decisions prohibit us from creating ordinances and legislation about camping. If we have no camping, if we say you can't stay in a public location, we have to have shelters in our city. That is the court rule with Boise. That's what we're fighting. The Supreme Court is looking at the Oregon case, the Grants Pass case. We'll see what comes from that. As I explained, there was the issues with litigation about passing ordinances saying you can't be here. We do have a no camping rule in Lacey Park because it is a park. And we also close that entire park. We can explore the idea of closing an area, but it has to be physically closed. We have to look at the idea of creating it as being uncomfortable. But your one opinion, there are others that don't want us to do that. That's the reason why we listened. Stephanie brought up the question at council. That will be addressed. We're talking to the city attorney. We looked at the issues of new ordinances and litigation. Some of these things could be more costly and more problematic that will not result in what you may want or someone else wants. So it's a much more complex issue than the way you propose your question. And I appreciate your question. I feel for you. I would much rather have my officers available to handle calls for something else or being in your neighborhood to make sure there is no crime, because it does detract from our time every day. We're still exploring these other ideas. The idea on having a bed available, we're looking at that. That is a possibility. We're not sure exactly how much that costs. We would look at in Pasadena. But again, if the person, no. And in the, we'll just have to take a look at what's available for us. And we're going to keep exploring different ideas and having discussions with the city manager, with the other city departments, and with the council. Thank you. As I said, and as the city manager said, that's our time. We really appreciate it. Thank you very much for coming.